All right, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Beard and Bookie podcast. As always, I am the Bookie, Dan Siegel. The man on the far right with the very large beard is the Beard, Josh Heltner. I will turn it over to our host, Matt Light, here shortly. But first, a couple of things early on. We keep pitching the Facebook page, the Twitter, you know, the podcast, everything that we're trying to put together. The interaction and the numbers that we've gotten over the last week uh, with the addition of Maddie here were very positive. So we'd like to, for all of us, like to say thank you. Obviously, you guys are enjoying what we're putting out. We like putting it out, so that's good. And also, quickly to Josh, Brentford is amazing. Destroyed the Wolves this week. Sleeper in the EPL. We've put everybody on notice.
Still can't afford Messi.
I don't want the guy who can't move. That's why he gets
No,
subbed out.
whatever excuse you need to make because your salary cap is low. Not even salary cap. You just don't have enough money to buy a guy like that.
You don't even know the vast fortunes that Brentford is working with.
Okay, whatever you say.
When you haven't played in the EPL in 80 years, you have plenty of time to put together fortunes.
I would expect better players with those fortunes.
All right. Without further ado, Matt, you host this thing, so take it over.
All right. So we're going to start with some NFL games. We had some pretty good games this weekend, some really close games this weekend, and a couple of division games to go over. So let's start with Monday Night Football. All right, Green Bay dropped 35 on the Detroit Lions. So is Rodgers back? Was he ever missing? And are the Lions in trouble?
Josh, I know how big of a Green Bay fan you are, so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, great. Is Rodgers back? Yes, definitely. I think the entire offense kind of found their footing this weekend. Is Detroit in trouble? When is Detroit not in trouble? I guess would be my question to you. Detroit just
time that it's a rebuilding year.
Yeah, every year Detroit's a rebuilding year, so I'm not really too concerned there. Detroit is at least putting up points. They're doing better than I expected with Jared Goff at quarterback, so I'm not going to ding them too much, especially playing an NFC North rival. Like, you got blown out by the Packers. You're not good. You're not there, and it's it's the Lions learning. Brand new head coach. They're still trying to figure it all out. They're still trying to put it together. And they don't have any weapons other than Hawkinson. I mean, Swift and Williams are looking good as a running back tandem. So there are some upsides here. But defensively, they're lacking. Offensive line is lacking. Wide receiver core lacking. So I think they knew that they were in trouble. I don't think that we need to react too poorly to how they're doing. I think they're exceeding expectations at this point with the way that they played against the 49ers and putting up 17 against Green Bay. Green Bay did make them look bad, but that's kind of what we all expected anyway, except me. I said they were going to lose, which, it's just my hatred and my bias playing out. Rodgers looked good. Aaron Jones with the 4 touchdowns really helped my fantasy team. So I'm kind of grateful in that regard. But, yeah, Packers now, if they play like this the rest of the season, are going to be scary. I was kind of excited to see how the Bears did against Cincinnati in that game, but I think we're back to it's Green Bay's division to lose, and if they keep playing like that, they're going to the playoffs easy.
Sure.
I'm not willing to suddenly say Green Bay is okay. I mean, let us not forget going into halftime, Detroit was winning that football game, and Goff was tearing up that defense. So, I mean, that game basically played out as expected. You kept waiting for Detroit to make the monumental error, and there was Jared Goff being Jared Goff making the monumental error when all he needed to do was throw a ball away and play another down, and instead he tries to throw a ball over a linebacker to a receiver and never gets there. And that's what changed the game around. All of a sudden there was, he fumbled, and that led to the touchdown there, and there was the pick, and the game was done. As far as Detroit's concerned, they they went in reverse. Last week it was the Niners jumped ahead real big, then they came late. This week it was they played close for a half and then gave it away in the second half. I mean, Detroit is what Detroit is, which is not very good. Green Bay needs to show what they showed last night against a somewhat competent team. Do I have concerns about Rodgers? No, I don't have concerns about Rodgers because, Rodgers is what Rodgers is. And when Aaron Jones is being Aaron Jones and getting in the end zone 4 times a game, then there won't be any problems. But, Devontae Adams said that the week 1 game against the Saints was almost like a 4th preseason game, which in some aspects I kind of get because this is the first year where they didn't have 4 preseason games. But until they get a playoff caliber type team, what they're supposed to, I don't think we're going to just look past any of what we saw in week 1 from Green Bay. I mean, we expected them to trounce Detroit, and they did. So congratulations. You did what you were supposed to do. Now go do it again.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as all these close games I was talking about, saw the Ravens and Chiefs on Sunday night, another night game. The Ravens beat them 36-35. I guess that's a quote-unquote beat them. Mostly on Lamar running, which we were talking about last week. So what do you guys think about that game?
Well, since I'm being called a Lamar hater, I guess I'll take this because I'm going to hate on Lamar more. Yeah, it is amazing what happens for Baltimore when they let Lamar run the football. Wow. Look at the great transformation of that offense when we said, hey, Lamar, why don't you run the football instead of standing in the pocket and trying to throw? So, great. They won a football game, which they wouldn't have won if Edwards-Helaire holds on to the football because they gave Mahomes way too much time at the end. Okay, if Edwards-Helaire doesn't fumble, the Chiefs win that game, and we're talking about a 2-0 Raven team that, then we're asking what all the problems are. But as far as Lamar is concerned, all the talking heads on ESPN, oh, well, he got the monkey off his back now because he finally beat Mahomes. That's not the monkey on his back, okay? When Lamar has a game in January and puts up big numbers and wins and gets out of the wild card round or the divisional round, then the monkey's off his back. But until then, I don't care what Lamar does in the regular season. We've seen the Ravens be dominant in the regular season. Okay, he got lucky and got a win over Mahomes. Congratulations. All of the questions I have about Lamar are still there, and they're not going away.
I think the real question and the real takeaway from this game is kind of what we were seeing glimpses of last week is Kansas City's defense is not as dominant. It doesn't look as good as it used to. And that, yes, we can say the Edwards-Helaire fumble is what cost him the game, but the defense was lacking that entire game. I mean, Lamar can't throw. You're not really putting too much pressure on him in the pocket. You're not really trying to contain him. You're allowing him to get those big runs going. I mean, I've never known Andy Reid not to be a game plan guy. He's not just going to run through people like Gronkowski. So that's really the issue that I'm seeing with Kansas City is I think that they've had a significant drop-off on defense. Their offense, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Nicole Harden, they're keeping them in games. They're making it competitive. That defense needs to step it up. They're not playing to the level that they should be playing. And once they kind of get that figured out, if they get that figured out, I don't see too much there. I'm not going to overreact on Lamar. He did what he does. Like when Lamar's given the opportunity to run and get big games and create plays, that's what he's going to do. So he's exactly who we thought he was in that regard. But Dan has a good point when it comes to, he's got to get past the divisional round. He's got to start winning some playoff games. Once he does that, we can start talking about his legitimacy a little bit more. Until then, great game. Mahomes' first loss in September. So kind of an interesting football year overall with that game.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of close games, let's go back to Thursday. Yeah, I know I'm going to get some hate on Thursday. So Washington ekes out a 30-29 win. So some interesting, a really interesting thing that I saw today. This marks just the 4th game that Jones has not turned the ball over. That's kind of a crazy stat, don't you think? But they still lost. So what do you guys got on that one?
Josh, just go ahead first because I'm just I've got plenty.
No, I have nothing. I have nothing to say, and the reason why I have nothing to say is because I know that my moment's coming in the next topic. So I'm actually going to let you two talk this one out since it is the game that you played against each other. It was fun for me to watch. I think I was the only one of the three of us that did say the football team was going to win that game. So, yeah, I'm just going to say I was right. You guys were wrong. And I'm going to let you battle it out from there what happened with your teams.
First off, I found it amazingly funny about a half hour before we went on air that RG3 wants to come back to the team because I'm sure the team is just knocking down the door for RG3.
Oh, for sure.
Even with Fitzpatrick and his 80-year-old hip needing to be replaced. All right, that's number one. Number two, okay, I made mention of this Thursday night about how I saw something and I wanted to see what happened in the Raven game so I can make the comparison. And then the Ravens went and did exactly what I was hoping they would do. Isn't it amazing when you have a quarterback who has limitations and you play to exploit his strengths instead of his weaknesses, how the offense looks? Okay? The Giants have no offensive line. None. They just have 5 bodies. They don't block anybody. Okay? So, Daniel Jones, who, as you mentioned, has ball security issues. All right? Instead of standing him in the pocket where he's just a bullseye waiting to get drilled, okay? You have Saquon back there who's not 100% yet. Okay? He's still working himself into game shape. Use him as a decoy and let Jones work off of that and run the football. Every time they do that fake and bootleg Jones out, he was getting chunks and chunks and chunks and chunks. Okay? The team never kind of caught on, which was stunning to me, which, by the way, okay, on the first of a long list that I'm going to mention on this show, as far as teams that we vastly overrated and defenses we overrated, put the team on there. That defense has been garbage for 2 weeks. Okay, no way that you should get carved up by the Giant offense, which they did. The team has no right to deserve to win that game. Okay, they win because of the stupidity of my freaking team. Okay, they leave too much time on the clock, first of all, for Heineke. Then secondly, all you have to do is make sure they don't move down the field to get in field goal position. That's all you have to do. So what do? You give them free yards the whole freaking way down. Here's a freaking 15-yard penalty. Then when they screw up and they've got a 46-yard field goal, you know what? All you have to do is wait for them to snap the ball. You don't have to move. No, let me go and move because I've got any chance of blocking this and give them another damn kick so they can win the game. All I hear from Joe Judge is discipline and blah, 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 blah. He comes from the Belichick tree. Nobody can do a damn thing right on this team. It's a joke. How hard is it to stay on side for a field goal? There's no field goal blocks in the NFL anymore. They've taken it away with all these rules about how you can't jump over somebody or do this or do that. Just stand the frick still. It's not difficult. It should have been a win. But instead, no. My team, which is just a growing trend with all my teams, and especially the Giants over the last 3-4 years, find any way possible to lose games and throw them away. And this is by far the worst one I can think of recently. This was a joke.
I don't even know where to go from there. Good. That was good. I appreciate that. Wow, you just covered everything I wanted to cover because I wanted to say that my team's defense sucks. They were supposed to be great. They have probably the most talent in the front 7 out of the majority of the teams in the NFL, and they still give up chunks of yards and still give up huge passes and don't get any pressure and get stupid penalties for hitting the quarterback late. And that is one thing, though. So with the roughing the passer, I wanted to ask Dan this specifically because with the roughing the passer, it was my team against your team, right? So Chase Young, just a little bit of stats on Chase Young. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, and runs a 4.94, right? So he's coming full speed. He gets 2 steps to hit the quarterback, correct? So he gets those 2 steps. He hits the quarterback, falls on top of him because he's 6'5" and freaking 265. How's he supposed to roll away from that? And is that a crappy call? And we'll cover the holding later.
Listen, you want to go down the NFL rules that suck? All right, the roughing the quarterback rule sucks. All right, this taunting rule is freaking ridiculous.
I was going to cover
I
that
mean,
one too.
we can have a whole show on how the NFL is screwed up. So, I mean, do you want me to say that the roughing the passer penalty was garbage? Yeah, it was garbage. Did it help me? Hell, it did. I wasn't going to argue it. Okay? Just like, okay, if Darius Slayton catches a damn football, we're not having a conversation. But my receivers apparently can't do their job. You know, if we want to go down that rabbit hole.
Run, downfield, catch, pass. That's their only job. Could do it.
Just simple things, okay? You know, how about, you know, spend a first-round draft pick on, you know, somebody that actually plays? You know, little things, you know, common things that NFL teams do that the Giants have difficulties doing.
Oh my God. All right. So moving to another close game. There's a game that I visited this weekend that I happened to work at. The Arizona Cardinals versus the Vikings. I was there for that whole game. You should have heard that stadium when that idiot missed that punt or that field goal. Excuse me. When he missed that field goal, you should have heard that stadium. I went deaf for a little bit.
So, should have heard my house.
Yeah, I bet. So with a little tidbit on the Vikings for you, Minnesota is giving up the 5th most yards per game, allowing the 5th highest QBR and the 6th most points per game, all while giving up the 2nd most sacks with 8 throughout 2 games. Their offense had no problem. Their offense carved up the Cardinals all game long. Cousins didn't make his normal mistakes, and trust me, I know Cousins, throwing 2 interceptions per game, especially when it comes down to like a real tight game, and he got them into field goal range. Idiot skips his foot off the ground, misses the field goal. What do the Vikings have to do to fix that defense?
It's pretty simple. They need to fire Mike Zimmer. This is something that I've said since week 1. First of all, thank you for bringing up the sack stat because I was gonna touch on that as well. 5 sacks week 1. Danielle Hunter got 3 sacks on Kyler Murray. So the defensive line, and when you said that your front 7 was top end, I would agree that the Vikings front 7 is also pretty close with Mike Pierce, Sheldon Richardson, Dalvin Tomlinson, Danielle Hunter, Anthony Barr, Eric Hendricks. Well, Anthony Barr's not playing right now, but when Anthony Barr plays, he looks good. And Nick Vigil is doing an outstanding job taking over for him. Had some big plays on Sunday, so that was super nice. To fix that defense, you fire Mike Zimmer because Mike Zimmer, and well, honestly, you fire that entire coaching staff. I know that like the offense put up points. Okay, Kirk Cousins had 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. So he hasn't thrown a pick at all this year, which is, yeah. So he's, yeah. So he's looking good. I mean, Dalvin Cook had a 3-yard average game 1. Game 2 comes out and has 94 yards in the first half, gets 26 in the second half. Here's the thing with the Vikings. So you have Kubiak Jr. is the offensive coordinator now, who basically just took Dad's playbook and came up with even more boring play calls and even more predictable play calls and runs those all the time. I can pretty much tell you, and this isn't just because I'm a Vikings fan, I can look at that offense and say 1st and 2nd down, handoffs to Dalvin Cook every time. You're either going left, right, or center, but it's going to Dalvin Cook 1st and 2nd down. Then you have to pray that Dalvin gets you enough yards for 3rd and short where Cousins can throw accurately within 10 yards, and then Thielen and Jefferson can make up some yards downfield. I was surprised when they threw that 60-yard dart to KJ Osborne. Threw me off. Wasn't expecting that, and I think that kind of set the tone, and I was kind of excited about that. But Arizona adapted to the average play call of, well, they're just going to give the ball to Dalvin, put some pressure on Kirk. Kirk can make throws. He's accurate enough. He's acceptable. He had the third or fourth highest QBR this week, so he did good. Jefferson and Thielen had decent yards, but nobody had any big games there. That defense and the supposed like cornerback whisperer in Mike Zimmer totally let him down. I've never seen Rondale Moore that wide open, even in college. And that's on Patrick Peterson. He was supposed to be covering him, didn't. Guy was wide open. That was the tide turner for the whole game. Like, you can break down and look at that entire game. That was the play that lost the Vikings that game. It wasn't the field goal, even though the field goal hurt. It hurts even more when your own broadcaster tells you that it's good on the radio, and you look at it and see that it's a miss. And then he's like, oh no, he missed it. Yeah, no shit, he missed it. Like, I said he was going to miss it before he missed it. Like, I didn't even watch. I was in the other room and I knew what happened. So it's one of those things where you fire Mike Zimmer, you fire Kubiak. Zimmer also calls the defensive plays. He hasn't been able to revitalize a cornerback in his entire career that he's been with Minnesota, the 8 seasons that he's been there. We've drafted 4 cornerbacks in the first round. Only one of them is on the team, and we re-signed him in free agency. Like, we let him go to Cincinnati for a year, and then he came back when we re-signed him after his 1-year deal, and that's Mackenzie Alexander. Patrick Peterson was supposed to come out here, learn from Zimmer, and revitalize his career. Haven't seen that at all. Harrison Smith has definitely declined, yet he just signed a big 4-year deal. So that entire defense needs a rework. It needs some fresh blood. It needs something different, because I'm sick and tired of teams being able to throw within 10 yards, well, within inside the first down markers. You could throw on any down, and you're going to have at least 5 yards of separation on the Vikings DBs, because Zimmer plays zone. He's afraid of getting beat deep on every single play. So he doesn't play man. He doesn't play press coverage. All of that needs to be fixed. He needs to go. I said this last year. They need to get rid of him this year. I think if this continues at this rate, he's either the second or third quarterback to get fired, or head coach to get fired this year. I think Joe Judge might be up there if the Giants continue. Urban Meyer might, have heart problems and might just take himself out of the running. So there's a couple there still, but the stat that really hurt me this weekend was 4 points separate Minnesota from being 2-0. And that 4 points is 100% on Mike Zimmer. So I'm mad about it. It wasn't a good game. Hats off to Arizona and Kyler Murray for making it work. The only thing that I thought was interesting was D-Hop was non-existent in that second half. That was the only thing that surprised me that whole game.
Yeah, he was pretty non-existent in the second half. Just like a quick thing, like Murray he threw 36 passes for 400 yards. He's my fantasy quarterback, and he's averaging 51.83 points per week. So He got me 65 this week, I think.
You're welcome.
Something like that, but thank you for that. So, and that's the thing, like that zone defense that you're playing is going to fall apart when you have a guy like Murray or a guy like Lamar Jackson. It's going to fall apart. Murray can throw the ball. That's one thing he can do. He can run, and he can throw the ball, and he's fairly accurate with it, even though he threw 2 interceptions, which were stupid mistakes. Without those 2 interceptions, I don't think this game is as close as it was.
They would have won by 21 without those mistakes.
Yeah, easily. And those mistakes, I feel like Murray kept the Vikings in the game personally, but I'm kind of starting to be a little bit of a fan of Murray. He's impressive.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because this is where I come in and pop bubbles. The Cardinals are one of the most overrated teams in the NFL through 2 weeks. Okay? For all, remember 2 weeks ago when we were sitting here having the conversation about how Notre Dame had a very tough game with Toledo, and how is Notre Dame ranked that high when they struggle with Toledo? How am I supposed to take the Cardinals seriously when they struggle with the Vikings after a Viking fan tells me they're going to get blown out by 21. Okay? And I'm tired of hearing about how great Kyler Murray is when he basically jumps off his back foot and lobs a ball in the air to a guy who's not covered within 20 yards. That's not skill. I can do that in the backyard if you don't want to cover somebody. Okay? Aaron Rodgers is the one with the skill because he throws off his back foot to a guy who's covered and throws an 80. Kyler and Lamar are doing. Stop. This team is overrated. It's inflated. Play somebody good and let Kyler go. All right. Kyler has shown. Remember, the Cardinals were in the hunt last year too. And then when games got important, Kyler got small and Kyler started making mistakes like you saw against the Vikings. And Kyler all of a sudden can't run around all over the place and starts getting sacked. This is an inflated team. I'm not buying them. All right. There's other teams I'm not buying that we'll get to too. But certainly the Cardinals are not a Super Bowl contender. And they're not winning the West.
We'll see in about 2 weeks when they play the 49ers. Because this week they play Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Not like that's a big deal. They should blow them out by at least 21 points. But in 2 weeks they play the 49ers at home. So we'll see. The 49ers actually have a defense, kind of. So we'll see. On the other hand, we have a couple teams that dominated this week. The Bucs dominated a little bit with a 48-25 win over Atlanta. And what did I'm trying to see here what the Bills put up? It was like 35-0, but they played
35-0. Played Miami.
Yeah, I mean they played Miami, and that's a division game, so that matters, I guess. So, what do you think about the Bucs? Are the Bucs dominating like you expect them to, or? Because, I mean, Tom Brady's like 4,000 years old and still going off for a ton of yards and throwing his 101st touchdown to Rob Gronkowski. So what do you guys think about the Bucs?
When we want to talk about defenses that are overrated, put the Bucs on there. Okay, because you brought back everybody from last year. Okay, and this was the defense that shut down Patrick Mahomes and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And look at this big, bad defense. Okay, and they needed to get to the fourth quarter where Matt Ryan started just giving balls away to pull away in that game. All right, and they got carved up in week 1 by Dak and Dallas. That defense isn't showing me anything. Okay, and remember that if Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship is able to score a couple more points and not throw a pick or two, Brady isn't in the Super Bowl to get Mahomes last year. Okay, that defense is a far cry from what it was at the end of last year. So I think you'll learn a lot about the Bucs this week when they play the Rams. I think that is a really good test for both teams to see where they're at. Everybody wants to talk about Stafford and the Rams and how good they've looked in the first 2 weeks. And, obviously the Bucs are the defending champs. So that's a good test for both teams this week. As far as Bills Dolphins, I mean, anybody who didn't think the Bills would suddenly get back on the horse and get right against the Dolphins was mistaken. The biggest takeaway I have from that game is, what do you know? Tua got hurt. What a surprise. I never thought that would happen. And guess what? Jacoby Brissett, who is nothing to write home about, he actually made that offense look better than Tua did.
Don't doubt it.
So, I thought it was Tua's hip when it happened. They say it's a rib injury. Call it what you want. Tua is not the quarterback of this team. Okay, that's why all the Watson rumors continue to swirl. That's why Tua wasn't even named a captain of this freaking team. Tua is, how do I want to put this? The comp to Tua right now would probably be Teddy B. All right, and Josh, you're the Teddy B lover here, so you'll get where I'm going with this. You want Tua to be the guy that's a game manager. All right. Short passes, just kind of move the chains, move down the field, let the defense kind of carry the load. All right. You're not looking to take shots down the field with Tua. All right. Strong run game. Pretty much how the Dolphins are set up. Gaskin does a decent job. The defense carries a big load. Just let Tua work that intermediate game. And that's all well and good. But when Jacoby Brissett comes in and makes that offense run better than Tua did, that says more than I ever could.
First of all, how dare you? Never compare Tua to Teddy B ever again. Okay? Don't do it. I'm going to get upset, so don't. Secondly, I probably have to agree with you, and I hate you even more for it. Tua's a game manager. I mean, Tua in college never looked like a game manager. So, yeah, as our comment there says, Tua's Matt Leinart. That's not entirely wrong right now. To get back to the main points, though, before Dan had to hurt me with that, I think that I'm not surprised at all by the way the Bucs have played the first 2 weeks. That offense is exactly what it was last season. And I had talked about this in one of our earlier podcasts too. The reason why Tom Brady and the Bucs are so successful on offense is because he has so many different weapons that he can throw to. I mean, Antonio Brown week 1 went off. He got all the targets, all the receptions, had huge, big yard numbers, good touchdown numbers. This week you saw more Mike Evans. So he can really distribute the ball anywhere. And Gronk has been consistent for 2 weeks. So he's really able to just put the ball wherever he wants to put it. He can give it to anybody and know that they're going to make plays. You're even seeing like Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. They're both looking good in the backfield too. I mean, Jones had that fumble week 1, didn't look great and didn't get much playing time after that, but the offense looks good. Defense is struggling. And I think that we will really get to see how good that offense is against the Rams, because the Rams are going to put that pressure on. The Cowboys-Bucs game was high scoring. I was surprised that Matty Ice and the Falcons put up 25. I think that you're going to see a pretty interesting scoreline. I think it's going to be a lot higher than what a lot of people think on the Rams side, but I think it's still going to end up being a pretty close game. I don't really know either way which way that's going to go. To the Jacoby Brissett point, though, I mean, Jacoby's been in the league a lot longer. He knows how to lead a team. He is more of that captain mentality, and he has the ability to go out there and play with a little, no risk attitude. I'm the backup. I'm not the starter here. I have this chance because he's hurt. Might as well go out and try and play my ass off, essentially. Didn't put up any points, much to my chagrin, since I have Miami's kicker in one of my fantasy leagues. That really hurt. But he looked good. I mean, Jacoby Brissett looked solid in Indy. That's why he earned that 2-year, $38 million contract when he was there. He's a solid guy. He's always been a quality backup, kind of like that Ryan Fitzpatrick a little bit. He's just there. He can put up serviceable numbers, and he's quality off the bench. So maybe we see – I don't know if they've announced if Tua's going to be out this weekend or not. If he is, I think Jacoby Brissett I think he does well. I mean, Miami's offense, Miami as a team really isn't as bad as a lot of people think they are. The Bills just really came out, I think, with a chip on their shoulder after that Steelers game. So the Bills are back in form. Miami's still technically, in my eyes, in contention for that second spot in the East, just depending on the Tua Jacoby situation and, like you said, kind of the game managing aspect of it. So those teams, I don't want to overreact too early, but I think we're starting to see early cracks and chips in everybody right now.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of a Rams-Bucs game, I was looking through the games, and pretty much the Rams-Bucs game and maybe the Packers-49ers game are really the only two that are really interesting to me. I'm pretty sure my team is going to get dominated by the Bills. What do you guys see coming up this week?
You want me to go first, Dan, or you want to go?
Sure, go ahead. Take it.
Okay, I got a couple games that I find pretty interesting this week. One of them is Colts Titans. You have the divisional matchup there. Tennessee coming off a big win against Seattle late. Derrick Henry really turned it on in that second half. We saw the Colts super competitive against the Rams. So you've got two teams that are really battling, really showing some heart. They both have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Carson Wentz didn't look terrible, so I mean there's that. If Derrick Henry kind of can get the legs going early, I think that they might run away with it. But Indy has looked good against good defenses before. We know that Tennessee is lacking in the defense department. Indy, I think, has a moderately good defense. I think they have a better defense than Seattle. I'll put it to you that way. So maybe they get some bigger stops. Julio hasn't looked great. So, yeah, if Wentz plays, but if Wentz doesn't play, I'm not really too concerned.
Ankles, bro.
I mean,
old ankles, bro.
Well, I mean, you sprain them both, and then you want to come back in the game. Either way, with or without Wentz, I still think it's going to be a good game because you can really put that game on Jonathan Taylor and even Nyheim Hines to an extent. Those two are a good running back tandem, so you have that. Their defense is good enough to hopefully slow down the Titans offense. I actually have the Colts covering. I think the money line right now is +5. It's Titans -5, Colts +5. So I like Colts +5 in that one. That game's really good to me. I actually have both of your team's games on here as games for me to watch this week, particularly Dan's with Atlanta and the Giants. I hate to tell you this, Dan, but you're probably going to know that I did this. I like Atlanta +3. I think that Atlanta putting up those points on the Bucs defense kind of shows that they do have a little bit of life, at least still left on offense. They can still do something. So I think that they at least make it close, if not win that game. As long as we're going to see Daniel Jones play the way that Daniel Jones did and not utilizing Saquon Barkley at all, I think the outcome of your games is going to kind of be the same. So I like Atlanta in that game. I don't like the football team to beat the Bills. I'll just tell you that right now. But I do like that to be a high-scoring game. I have the over 45.5 on that one. So that's 3 big games that I've got. And then 2 others. I've got Vegas -3.5. I forget who Vegas is playing. I should probably find that. But
Dolphins.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I like Vegas -3.5 against the Dolphins. And Seattle -2 against the Vikings. I think, again, it's probably going to be a blowout. So,
by the way, with the Dolphins, they got Tua day-to-day, is what they're saying right now.
Okay, so if Brissett plays, it's a little bit more interesting. I still like the Raiders to cover by 3.5. 2-0 beating the Steelers and the Ravens. They look good. I'm going to give Derek Carr some credit. He is slinging it. That pass that he threw deep to Henry Ruggs made me feel like that was beautiful. It made me feel like I was watching some classic Bama football. I really appreciated it. Got to see Ruggs kind of do Ruggs things. So I think that those are the games really I'm going to watch this week and pay attention to. So other than the ones you mentioned, those are the ones that I like, and that's what I'm betting on this week.
Okay. Dan, what you got?
All right. Well, I'll start with the game that you just mentioned, which was the Raiders. As far as teams overrated, you can put the Raiders on there. Okay, when you play Swiss cheese defenses like the Steelers, when TJ Watt goes out, you can hit Henry Ruggs over the top and look real good. Miami's defense isn't a slouch. So let's see how Derek Carr slices them up. I wouldn't be surprised, whether it's Brissett or Tua, if they keep that game close. Last week I talked about looking at the Steelers game as a letdown spot for the Raiders. And then Watt goes out, which changes that entire Steelers defense. And as soon as Watt went out, I said, this game's over. They weren't going to stop anybody. And, Roethlisberger looks older than dirt. Like, that offense doesn't move the ball at all. The Steelers are so vastly overrated at this point. It's a joke. So that's that. But the Dolphins are a team that can limit. Like, I don't think you're going to get all kinds of opportunities to hit Ruggs over the top and all kinds of other stuff. So it's an interesting game to me. We already talked about Rams Bucks. Saints Patriots is one I'm interested in. Jameis came real down to earth real quick this week. And Belichick is obviously a guy that can exploit all your weaknesses. And, Mac isn't looking outworldly, but he's doing just enough to win, which is all Bill wants him to do. So, does Jameis turn into Tampa Bay Jameis? Or does he look like week 1 Jameis? That's intriguing to me. And then the game I think I'm most excited about is Chiefs Chargers. Because if you remember when we did our preview show, Josh, I said the Chargers have a shot, not a great one, but a crack in the door of winning this division. Okay, because I talked about how tough the early part of the Chiefs schedule was, and obviously they slipped up against the Ravens this past week. The Chargers should be 2-0. The Chargers got absolutely screwed against the Cowboys. Okay, and Mike McCarthy should thank his lucky stars. Zerloin bailed him out from that horrid clock management that he pulls at the end of that game, where he wastes 25 seconds and Zerloin ends up having to kick a 56-yarder to win the game. All right, the refs took 2 touchdowns off the board from Herbert. All right, and I'm hearing about how great, look at how the Cowboys defenses looked and blah, 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 blah. They wouldn't have won the game. Herbert didn't have a whole lot of problems. Like, what am I missing? The Chargers should be 2-0, should be ahead in that division right now. And now they've got an opportunity. I think they're going to be upset following the loss. Obviously, the Chiefs are going to be disappointed coming off the Ravens loss. I think this is a really intriguing game to see how both teams come out. Obviously, the Monday night game, Eagles and Cowboys, everybody's high on the Cowboys after 2 weeks. Oh, well, they played the Bucs tight, and then they beat the Chargers, and what do you know? The Eagles came real down to earth against that Niners defense. Who saw that coming? Jalen Hurts looked real good, didn't he? Please. So this is a spot I think Jalen Hurts could get right, because this Cowboy defense isn't this world beaters that everybody's making them out to be. So I think this is a chance for the Eagle faithful who was looking at Super Bowl after week 1. They're obviously, I think this could be a tight game. Josh, you mentioned us playing the Falcons. What you don't realize about that is it is Eli retirement day. They are retiring Eli's jersey at halftime. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that building. And weird things happen on jersey days. So while I take nothing away from the Giants, and if they can find a way to lose to one of, if not the worst team in the NFL, they will find it. Due to circumstances, I do like them this week.
It's interesting that it's Eli jersey day. What his number was 10, yeah? I'm pretty sure it was 10. Yeah, 10.
Yeah,
that's the number of points. That's the number of points you're scoring on Sunday. Okay, that's it. 10.
Shots fired again.
I will take. Josh, I'll
take
the bet. I'll take the over. Whatever you want to do.
Ooh, all right.
What's to say? The Atlanta Falcon defense. You, me, and Matt could score more than 10 points against the Falcon defense.
Probably.
Yeah, all right, fair. But things are weird on Jersey Day, so they score 10 points.
Yeah, 10 points. I think that's all they have to score. But
yeah, it's probably going to be like a 10-7 game, so they're only going to need 10 points.
Probably. But they're still going to cover your 3. So what's that, 3.5?
3.
3? That's close. It's kind of close. I would take 3.5, but probably not this game.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
I'm going for Atlanta, though. So if it's 7-10, Atlanta covers, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was thinking because I'm taking the Giants on that one.
Listen, this is not going to be a 7-10 game. This isn't going to be a low-scoring game because on the list of defenses that aren't doing anything, you could put the Giants defense on there too. Because for every reason that the Giants had of winning a crappy division last because of their defense, I don't know what happened this year because they're not doing anything. Not doing a damn thing. All right, I already knew they couldn't get pressure, at least defend some passes, but apparently we can't do that either.
Good Lord. All right, you guys got anything left for the NFL today?
No.
No, you can move on.
All right,
get
good.
to the loft later.
Moving into some college football. All right, so Alabama dominated Florida, in my eyes, for the majority of the game. Is there anybody out there that is a real number one team? Because I see even with their crap quarterback at Florida, they were still competitive in that second half. Not so much in the first half because I turned the game off. Like, I think the beginning of the second quarter, I turned it to the Notre Dame game because I was like, man, I'm not watching this anymore because it was going to be a blowout. But Florida became kind of competitive in that game. So is there a real number one out there? Because it's Alabama's to lose, obviously, but is there a dominant number one?
Dan, I'll let you go first. I'll save my piece on Alabama.
I know you're a Bama fan. So.
Yes.
The Alabama game went as expected. All right, what did we talk about last week when we were talking about college bets? You take Alabama first half every single week because that's what they do. They destroy people in the first half. And then, because Saban doesn't have them rounded into form yet, the second half leaves the door open for backdoor covers. Did I think Florida would cover a 2-touchdown spread? Abso-freaking-lutely. Alabama's not in a position yet to dominate teams that are at least competent, which Florida is competent. But is there a team right now that if you give me a one-game winner-take-all situation, I'm going to say could knock off Bama? No. Like, who you giving me? What, Iowa? No. Georgia? No. I mean, who you giving me? There's nobody there.
UCLA?
And it pains me to say because I feel like I'm just inflating the Beard's ego over there, but it's the truth.
So, if you ask me, I have some stats for you on this game, okay? And I will say that you said this last week, and I still don't think it's true. If I thought that Alabama was like the only real national championship contender team, I don't think so. Bryce Young being, a first-time starter going on the road into a hostile environment in Florida, played amazing that first half. When he got the pressure put on him in that second half, you could really see the flaws. You saw the flaws on our defense too, and this is probably the worst offensive line that Alabama's had in a couple of years. At least starting out, they look terrible right now. I've never seen them give up that many rush yards in a second half to a team ever. But a couple things to keep in mind here. Alabama has not lost a game where they were ahead by 18 points since 2010, and that was Cam Newton's Auburn team that beat them when they had an 18-point lead. The two closest wins they've had after having an 18-point lead are both from Florida. So Florida is a team that is known to kind of take it to Alabama, make it close, make it uncomfortable when Alabama has a big lead early. I think Florida looked really good. I do honestly believe that Florida can beat Georgia. Georgia's defense is pretty scary, so I don't think that they're going to get away with some of the things they got away with on Alabama. I just read the comment saying Oregon might have a shot. Pull your head out of your ass. That's not happening. No chance. Like, Oregon is probably the furthest of the top 4 to have a chance at beating Alabama or winning a national championship at this point. The only way that Alabama doesn't make it to the national championship game is if Georgia and Kirby Smart or Florida pull out a win in the SEC championship game. Even then, they might still make the playoff and they could win in a revenge game. So anything's possible there. The big things, though, is they still don't look good. Saban doesn't have the talent at running back that he used to either. Brian Robinson is a serviceable running back. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not a Mark Ingram. He's not a TJ Yeldon. Now, I'm saying these names because some of them are bums in the NFL, but they were all quality running backs in college. So Robinson's serviceable, but he's not a big play guy. So Bryce Young really does have to throw the ball a lot more. Thankfully, he has some quality receivers still. Bama's known for quality receivers as of late. So he's able to throw the ball, but he doesn't have the protection. He doesn't have the running back that he can lean on when he's struggling or when he has heavy pressure. So we kind of need to find that balance there. If Bama can put that together and fix the defensive issues that they have, which Saban will get, they will get it eventually. Does it come before an upset? I don't know. Hopefully. For me, it's the only winning team that I follow and that I'm a fan of, so I kind of need that for my own sanity. But at the end of the day, college, no, there's no true number one right now. Georgia, Alabama are the 2 best teams in college football right now. Then I would say Florida, even with the loss, is up there. Oregon is okay. I mean, they're in the Pac-12, and I think what was the question we asked last week? Is the Pac-12 back? No. No. UCLA lost that game, so they were the only team that I was really giving any credit to other than Oregon. So the Pac-12 isn't back. The Pac-12 still has its own issues. Arkansas looks amazingly good in the SEC for some reason right now, so they're like the team to watch this weekend. But no, it's still all eyes on SEC. There's not really any other division right now that has anybody worth watching. Michigan looks okay, I guess. Clemson doesn't look great. Florida State tanked. So Big 12, Baby Tua maybe up in Maryland is interesting, but there's not too much else going on in college right now.
Baby Tua didn't look that great against Illinois. I watched that game. He didn't look that great against them. So
probably hung out with his brother for too long.
Probably. He's like, hey, throw it left-handed. That'll work better. What you got, Dan? No bandwidth. That's what Dan's got.
Oh, yeah. Delay.
I mean,
this just means he's wrong.
Probably. Poor Dan.
I feel so bad. He was doing so good up to this point too.
He was doing great.
I think he gets a new head wrinkle every time his internet goes out.
But Josh, I mean, look at the undefeated teams right now. I mean, we can poke holes in everybody. Georgia can't score. They can defend like hell, but they can't score. Oregon is Oregon. Oklahoma doesn't win big games.
Okay. I got a couple picks for you. Since I've actually been doing really well in college, I'm gonna throw a couple of these out here for you. So Dan's gonna go figure out his internet situation and he'll be back. Which makes sense. He's gonna probably move back to the dark side, which I prefer him when he's on the dark side. I don't have to look at his face as much, so that's cool.
You're right. Before you get into your picks real quick, looking at games this week, games that are standing out to me are the Notre Dame Wisconsin game to show whether or not Notre Dame can play against an actual defense. UCLA Stanford looks like an interesting game, and this one was funny. I had to look at it like 3 or 4 times because one of these teams I absolutely hate because Notre Dame, right? So Michigan is 3-0, and Rutgers is 3-0. I saw Michigan's run game last week, and that's kind of scary. That run game is nasty. So, with that being said, what do you got with college this week?
No, I also like the Notre Dame Wisconsin game. I like Wisconsin -6, and I like the over. I think that's going to be a pretty high scoring game. Mainly because, I mean, like you said, we want to see how Notre Dame does against an actual defense. I'm a firm believer, and I told Dan this, like, Notre Dame very well could go undefeated in the regular season. This is the game where I see that really being put to a test. So let's see. Let's see if they've just kind of got off to a rocky start and if they can actually look like a legitimate team. So I do like that game. I like the over, and I like Wisconsin -6 in that one. Arkansas versus Texas A&M. A&M is they've been good the past couple of years. Arkansas is really impressing this year. I mean, they beat the brakes off of Texas, so that's always something that, like, Arkansas seems to be kind of more legit now. They are a 5.5-point dog. I actually like them in that game, and I like the under. I think that's going to be a little bit lower scoring. A&M, struggled against Colorado, only put up 10 points in that game. I can see Arkansas putting up some points, but it's an SEC rivalry game. So I think if it's an offensive struggle, it's going to be pretty low scoring, but I like Arkansas to at least cover. I think it's a 3-point game tops. It's going to be close. And then West Virginia. West Virginia is plus 16.5 against Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, I think, is probably the one in the top 4 right now that has the best chance the easiest chance other than Alabama, who's playing Southern Miss, to win this week. But West Virginia has been kind of putting it on lately. They're playing way better than they should be. They're outperforming for sure. And I think that they could go in there and have a potential upset on Oklahoma. So I like that 16.5. I think it's a 2-touchdown game, the way that the West Virginia's been playing. And I think I have the over in that one as well. Let me just double check. Yep, over 56.5. I think that's a shootout. So those are the 3 games that I'm really paying attention to. Bama's got Southern Miss. That's pretty much a guaranteed win. Not worried about it. That's just a warm-up for more SEC play. So those 3.
Who you got in the Rutgers-Michigan game?
Michigan.
Straight up just Michigan.
Yep. I have Michigan. I don't know what the line is. I think it's – I don't remember. It's not close, though. I think it was 8.5 or something like that, if I remember right. And I like that. I think that they get a double-digit win on Rutgers. Rutgers hasn't done anything to impress me at this point. Yes, they're 3-0, so I mean they're doing decent, but this is really Michigan's year to win the Big Ten. So I think that they're just going to put it on. I think they're going to keep the momentum going. Harbaugh's kind of on a roll, and he needs to prove himself a little bit. So I think they win and win easily.
I'm just glad Notre Dame's not playing them this year.
Yeah, any excuse for Notre Dame to not play a good team is always good for Notre Dame.
Exactly. All right, what you got, Dan? Welcome back, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here. Internet decides to go in and out when it wants to. Josh, do you realize that you're taking Wisconsin in the Jack Cohn revenge game?
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Wisconsin didn't almost lose to Toledo.
I was saying, Wisconsin, who is 1-1, but they did lose to Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State.
Who's the only team worth a damn that they played? Who would they? Who was Wisconsin beating? Central Michigan?
Who's Notre Dame beating?
I'll say this is Wisconsin's. They beat Florida State, who is still they're not a national title contender, but they're a legit team.
Do they have a win yet? I'm pretty sure they're 0-3. Or are they 1-2?
Go 1-2.
Oh.
My point is your hatred of Notre Dame is completely washing away the idea of Wisconsin's played one legitimate game that they lost, and now they're going into this is essentially a neutral site match. It's at Soldier Field in Chicago. Okay. And now you're saying Wisconsin lost to Penn State. They beat up on Central Michigan, and now they're playing Notre Dame. And you have this abundance of confidence in them where Notre Dame, while they haven't blown the doors off anybody, is winning games. I don't think it's that easy to dismiss them. Listen, I will take Notre Dame with the points, and I'm not uber confident in, but I will sprinkle the money line because Notre Dame could very easily win this game. It is not this surefire thing that Wisconsin just comes in and steamrolls. Wisconsin is not, this isn't Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin.
True. However, I've seen Notre Dame struggle more than Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin losing to Penn State, who, I mean, didn't they just beat Auburn? As much as I hate Auburn, Auburn's a legitimate team too.
The Notre Dame struggles come in playoff times. Notre Dame, while never looking overly impressive, finds ways to win in the regular season. Remember, they beat Clemson last year, okay? It was the Trevor Lawrence COVID game, okay, when, Mr. 47 syllables decided he was going to look like a Heisman candidate before he took a crap this year. All right, but nevertheless, they won that game. All right, so Notre Dame finds ways to win in the regular season. It's the playoff that they can't find a way to win, let alone be competitive. Okay, but to dismiss them against a Wisconsin team that, by my accounts, isn't been all that impressive here on the early going, I think is foolish.
I see your point. You're wrong, but I see your point. It comes down to the fact that, like you said, Notre Dame does find a way to win games. They absolutely do. And I told you, and I've said this multiple times on here, that I firmly believe Notre Dame could go undefeated in the regular season before getting absolutely destroyed in the playoff. What I said was this is their first test. Buyout. Well, it doesn't even have to be Alabama. Oregon could
probably Alabama or Clemson. One of those two.
I don't think Clemson makes the playoff this year. Honestly, they don't look great. They could. Oklahoma would beat the brakes off of Notre Dame right now without breaking a sweat. Any SEC team right now, Arkansas would manhandle Notre Dame now.
That's a stretch.
All I have to do is tell Oklahoma it's an important game, and they'll find a way to lose.
Yeah, true. But I mean, I'm interested in this.
Josh, by the way, we need to clear something up.
Yeah.
There is a lot of talk in the chat about you potentially being Muslim.
Oh no, I eat way too much bacon to be Muslim, bro. Can't do it.
Okay, here is the last question that we got here. Let's pop this up on the screen for you.
Oh, dude, this is barbarian culture, okay? I'm not appropriating Muslims. This is straight up Germanic barbarians. Had big, luscious beards like this. Now, the reason why I'm not a technical, Norwegian Viking is because I don't braid this shit. I don't wear makeup. I don't look super pretty. I just go, no. Not. This is very Germanic. It's Germanic in nature and Celtic. This is how they kind of wore it. They didn't do all the fancy braids and shit. I know a lot of Muslims that have longer beards as well, and it's a sign of manhood for them too. But no, I'm not at all. I have nothing against Muslims or their religion, but for me, this is just my own culture and the fact that I pretty much grow it because I can, and the military said I can't. So I'm going to let it grow as long as I want to.
Exactly.
Not everybody has the ability to do this. I'm taking advantage of it.
There's the Notre Dame doesn't play anyone. I love hearing that every year.
Well, they play people in the playoffs when they get there.
Yeah, we get there Once every couple years.
By the way, hold on. I got one more thing here before we move on. One more thing before we move on. Okay, let's take this comment here. Let me put it up on the screen. Okay, it's easy to dismiss Notre Dame because they suck. Coming from the Arizona State fan who just lost to BYU, give me a goddamn break. Shut your mouth. You lost to BYU.
In BYU, everybody loses there. But they don't play anybody either. So.
No.
BYU doesn't.
All right, Zach Wilson didn't walk through the door and pretend he was good again.
No.
How many picks did he have on Sunday? 4?
4.
Yeah. That's a BYU quarterback.
I think he had as many completions. I think he had as many completions to his own team as he did the other.
I think he had as many interceptions as Gunnar has wives.
Probably. Pretty close.
Close.
Really. Yeah, he is a Jets fan. We don't talk about the Jets on here.
Yeah.
Just a big waste of time.
Moving on.
All right, speaking of fighting, we're going to go to some MMA action here. So, Josh, we're going to talk about this revenue sharing with the MMA League for 2023.
Yeah.
That was reported as per the MMA News. What you got on that?
Yeah, so Ariel Hawani talked about this on the MMA Hour, and it was reported by MMA News. Essentially, there is a group of people trying to put together an MMA league that resembles the NFL, NBA. It's a revenue-sharing league where you actually have fighters under contract that fight out of specific gyms. There's free agency. People can move. They can go fight for different gyms and things of that nature. They want to have kind of gym-on-gym fight cards. So say you have something like Jackson Michael John out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, going up against ATT in Florida. So you take, I don't know, you want to do a 12-man, 12 fighter fight card, 12 fighters from ATT, 12 fighters from Jackson Wink, put them on a card and fight. And you'd have home and away fights. So they'd have an event in Albuquerque, they'd have an event in Florida. They kind of want to do it that way, and they want to do it so that the fighters get a larger share of the revenue. That's their whole thing, is they want a bigger revenue share. It's their way of promoting fighters getting more money. Here's the issue with this, though. I mean, they want to bring this out in 2023. Any fighter right now that's out of those main gyms isn't really going to want to go to this league unless they're prospects. So you're almost turning this into like a modified LFA Cage Warriors type deal, but you're doing it team on team. So it's an interesting concept. It's almost like bringing the Ultimate Fighter to a different level because it's gym on gym, which they've done before. They did Black Zillions and ATT. So it's interesting, but I don't think it's going to work because I don't think fighters are going to sign up for it. The revenue share portion might work. And I want to read this comment here real quick.
Boxing, and the thing about boxing is it's like boring. Nobody wants to lose anymore. So, and they're making 40 times the money.
They make 40 times the money because the outcomes are guaranteed. It's very close to WWE in the event that boxing is almost not a sport anymore. The actual organized boxing with legitimate boxers, you pretty much know who's going to win that fight as soon as it gets announced. It's whoever the promoter wants to win is going to win because those judges are paid for. You don't really have that in MMA. You can't really fix an MMA fight because the judges don't know what the fuck they're doing. And that was kind of one of the reasons why this podcast started in the first place, was Dan and I wanting to do a live stream of a UFC pay-per-view and just judge the cards ourselves because we felt like we didn't know what they were doing. So the MMA has to fix a lot of things. The other issue is you're not going to get any big players. Dana White and Scott Coker are just going to look at the guys that are already champions, that are already making all the money, that have the biggest names, and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, well I've got you under contract for 10 fights. You can try and get out of your contract, but I could just." He might give them a little bit more money to stick around, and just be like, "Hey, I've got the big names. I have all the people that you actually care about. They're still going to fight over here. So you want to go watch this, these lower class fighters. You want to watch them fight team on team. Cool, interesting concept, but there's not going to be any real money in it. you're not really going to have any draws, because as soon as you get a big draw, Dana White's going to wait for their contract to be up, and he's going to scoop them up, and he's going to take them. And then Scott Coker will take them from Dana White when they're old and battered and shouldn't fight anymore. So that's going to be the new kind of cycle that you're going to see. A lot of these guys will probably be like contender series rejects. So I think it's an interesting concept, but until you get some of these big name guys, or girls, some people with actual talent that are performing at that high level, until you get somebody like that on board that says, I'm going to go fight with them, and you get teams that are signing up saying, our up-and-coming fighters are going to fight exclusively under this promotion, it's not really going to work. So it's going to be a lot of random teams you've never heard of and random fighters you've never heard of doing it. You're not going to get the big names in it. So we'll see. I like it. I like that they're trying to change it up and go about it a different way. It's not going to work, though.
Yeah, we like that they're trying to get fighters paid. Fighters deserve to be paid because they're the ones out there getting their asses kicked. So
absolutely.
That's the thing. But what you got, Dan? If he can answer.
I agree with a lot of what Josh said. You're going to get nobody noteworthy in this thing. And revenue split is they're not going to take any more than 50% of the proceeds. Well, then that means the fighters get the other 50%. What's 50% of nothing? Because who's coming out to watch this garbage? It's a novel idea, but this is like what the XFL is. It's a bunch of guys who can't make it elsewhere, and yeah, it's a nice idea, but like Josh said, this is with money from other sports that think MMA is cool and try to put something together around an idea that people talk about, but they have no idea of how to actually make it work.
You'd almost have to go back to almost like a Pride kind of style and do it team on team. So if it was like Japan doing this, I'd be all for it, because I think Pride was better. Pride was better overall when they had good fighters. And putting on the show and the showmanship of it was way better with Pride. So if they took kind of the Pride model as far as how to present the fights and the showmanship of it and put this format in, I could see it. I'm sure there's tons of teams in Dagestan right now that would love to get involved with something like this. So maybe internationally, this would be a great way to introduce fighters that are relatively unknown outside the U.S. Inside the U.S., though, no one's going to care.
True. All right, let's stick with Dan real quick. What's going on with the MLB and proposing the 14-team playoff?
Josh, you know that one of our favorite segments on this show is the We Hate Rob Manfred segment. And that's what this is. Because if you remember last year when we had the shortened pandemic season, we did 16 games or 16 teams in the postseason, which Manfred then came out and said, well, this is too many. So when he negotiated for this season, he tried to push forward a 14-team postseason, which the players said kick rocks. And now this is something he's going to try and push through in the new CBA, which comes up at the end of this year. This idea is garbage, complete and utter garbage. I couldn't hate it anymore if it came from somebody other than Rob Manfred. Now, mind you, the 14 teams would still be the lowest as far as a percentage among the major sports, but still, okay, the idea of expanding the MLB playoffs really negates the 162 game regular season, which is supposed to matter so much. Just look at this year. And if we went to 14 teams, do you really want a team like the Phillies or the Reds in the postseason right now? No. I mean, in the AL, you'd be looking at, well, are the Mariners or the A's going to get in? And the whole idea of, the AL East with the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Blue Jays and everybody trying to figure out, and everybody fighting against each other, trying for those spots. It wouldn't matter with 14 teams. Okay. Everybody talks about, these teams that win 90 games and don't get in. It doesn't happen all that much. Okay. If we went to this, you'd only get four additional teams that had won 90 games that would get in. 2019 Indians won 93, the 2013 Rangers won 91, the 2018 Rays won 90, and the 2012 Rays won 90. Okay? You'd have as many sub 500 teams as you would 90-win teams in the postseason. It makes no sense at all. It's stupid. Okay? I have been a proponent, and this isn't going to happen either. All right? Right now we have 30 MLB teams. Once like Oakland figures out their stadium situation and things like that, we're eventually going to go to 32. I mean, Nashville's been talked about for a couple of years. I don't know if that's still going to happen. All right, but we're eventually, you need to shrink. We don't need 30 teams. You could go down to 26 and it would still work. So instead of expanding playoffs, leave the playoffs the same. In fact, okay, this isn't going to happen at all because Manfred's just trying to create more October baseball to try and generate more revenue. And guess what? If you have a bunch of garbage teams in the playoffs, nobody's going to care. How many people watch the first round of the NBA playoffs? I mean, nobody cares. Right, what, the 1 seed beating up on the 8th seed that should be in the playoffs in the first place? Nobody cares. All right. Ja, I might be the only one of this group that's old enough to remember this, but there was a time where you actually had to win the division to make the playoffs. There was no wild card. Okay? That's what I want. Win the division and get it. Don't be a wild card. I hate the wild card. What's this?
You're not the oldest one in here.
What are we arguing?
Matt would technically be the oldest one in here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He told us last week how old he was.
No.
He's older than you.
Okay.
A little bit.
Fine. Whatever. But regardless.
I'm not old anymore.
Oh, you're still old as shit.
Point being, if you had 14 teams in the playoffs this year, you'd have 3 teams in the NL that don't even have 85 wins. All right, and that's ridiculous. So stop with this. Please stop. Okay?
Oh, he's not talking about
wait, hold on. Let's go to this. Let's go to this because we go here.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Wait, hold on. What did I just say? Baseball is not supposed to be like the other sports.
We're talking about baseball.
Exactly. I don't want baseball to look like football. I don't want it to look like basketball. I don't want it to look like anything.
I'm just saying.
Let football have the wild card. The wild card is good for football. People want as much football as they can get. You can't get people to watch baseball now.
I'm just saying, if baseball was more like football, I would probably watch it more.
Yeah, probably. If it wasn't so many damn games, I'd probably watch it more. That's just me. Sticking with baseball, what about the Padres dugout?
Wasteful generation.
Hey, that Padres dugout situation. So I didn't really pay attention to it until we brought it up in the chat. I don't know where you guys are going to go with this, but like if it's me, that looks like just a lack of leadership coming from the manager. Like, isn't that his whole job? Now, personally, I don't mind when players kind of go at it. Like, I like that fire. I like that adversity. I feel like it's one of the best ways to team build is you guys get mad at each other to the point where you blow up like that, and then you come together, resolve, and you're stronger overall for that. But apparently this has been going on for several weeks and it's never been addressed, but everybody knew about it. And I mean, it is two of your highest paid players, your most high profile players with Machado and Tatis Jr. I don't really know what the entire beef is here, but like, if I'm Tingler, you really should have stepped in at this point and never let it get that far. Like you were still technically in the playoff hunt. It's not going great for you, but you're still there. You're still able to try and play spoiler. Things like this coming at this point in the season is the absolute worst time. This should have been handled weeks ago. Like as soon as you found out about it, you should have done more. So I personally, I put it on the manager, and I think it's just a total lack of accountability on his part.
I agree with Josh completely.
Matt, this is perfect timing that you bring this up. Literally just moments ago, standing side by side, Machado and Tatis apologized to the fans and said emotions got the better of them during the confrontation. Let's see. They said that they've handled it internally as a team and that players in the organization would learn and get better from the Saturday incident. Machado said, "We have Fernando over here trying to win the MVP. We've got a team trying to compete and get to the World Series. We haven't been playing some great baseball, so emotions get involved and get the better of us at times in those situations that we learn as leaders, as a team, as an organization, and we just get better from that." He called Tatis my little brother, adding, "We have a lot of years here moving forward." Here's the problem, and this is a problem that goes back all the way to the trade deadline. All right, and this is a problem that I have with the White Sox, who everybody loves coming into the postseason as a potential World Series contender. Look at that team and look at who has the experience, not only of the postseason, but of winning it in the postseason. The only guy you can point to is Eric Hosmer, who won with the Royals. Okay? And what was the big talk come the trade deadline? The Padres were trying to move Eric Hosmer's contract. So Eric Hosmer, who by all accounts should be the leader in that clubhouse because he's the guy who goes, "Listen, I know what it takes to get through this. I know what it takes to win. I've been there. I've done it." Okay? That's the guy you want to get out of the clubhouse. Instead, let's listen to Manny Machado, whose great years were with the Orioles, who have never won anything. Fernando Tatis, who grew up around his dad, who was a beast star. Let's face it, okay? He had one career game, and that's it. There is no leadership in that clubhouse. The Padres, right, they were done from the start. They traded for Clevenger at the deadline last year, immediately had to go Tommy John, never had him this year. They traded for Blake Snell. Snell didn't pitch well. Darvish has been up and down. Paddock never looked like the rookie of the year that he thought he was when he was arguing with Pete Alonso that he should be rookie of the year instead of Alonso. The pitching has been blah all year. And despite Tatis being Tatis has been out with injuries. The Adam Frazier trade didn't make much sense. This is a Padre team that is still struggling with, just being adults, taking responsibility for things. I mean, they fired Larry. It's his fault that Blake Snell can't pitch past the sixth and Yu Darvish forgot how to pitch. Like, come on. As far as your remark, Josh, about blaming it on the manager, this is Tingler's first job. He's in his second year. I think he's still learning a lot of things too. And yeah, he doesn't have that guy who is right. A lot of first-time managers always have that bench coach who has been a manager before that can kind of help them, kind of steer things. He doesn't have that. It wouldn't surprise me if Tingler gets fired after this year. They're going to need a scapegoat. This was a team that had expectations through the roof that were never obtainable. I mean, you can go back to the my last podcast before me and Josh started, where I gave out all kinds of MLB future bets. The Padres under and wins was one of the easiest ones I had. I mean, it was ridiculous for people to think that the Padres, in a division with the Dodgers, and people sold the Giants short. I don't know that anybody saw the Giants being what the Giants are, but I didn't think the Giants would be garbage. I mean, to think that the Padres were just going to steam through this division and through this, and through the NL, it was a joke. There's a lot of growing up that needs to be done, both from Tatis himself, from Machado, and from everybody else on that. I mean, that is a young team. There's no leadership on that squad, and I think that's something that if the Padres want to take that step forward next year, they really need to look at that and try and bring in some veteran guys, whether it's bench pieces or a starter here and there that can be that leadership in that clubhouse, because it's desperately needed.
Awesome. All right, so for our last topic of the day, we're going to do something a little controversial. I say it's controversial because people get very upset about it. So, news coming out of soccer, the women's national team and the men's national team. Women's national team has been talking about equal pay for equal or better play, really. They said that the contract that they were handed was bogus, and it was a PR stunt by the soccer federation to give them exactly equal pay, and then share between the two different teams would share whatever they won equally between each other. I want to know how you guys feel about this whole situation. And I also want to put the bug out there that the men's national team, love them. They're my team. I mean, I love the American team, but they're not competitive. They don't qualify for the Olympics over and over again. They don't win. I mean, that's not big. I mean, I understand, like on the men's side, as far as competition throughout the world, they're vastly overmatched. But what do you guys think about this equal pay for equal pay stuff? And they turned it down even though it was equal. And yeah.
So here's the thing with this. And Dan, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this, and I feel our thoughts are actually pretty close to mutual on this. But I'm going to take this a different route. So for those of you that don't know, I know some of you that are watching this do know, I was a paralegal for 6.5 years. So I kind of understand how contract law and just law in general works, and how things like this can play out at times. What the USSF, so the U.S. Soccer Federation, what they did here is they called their bluff straight up. A little bit of background: the women's national team, their contract is up in December 2021. And the men's team has actually been up since 2018, but because of COVID and everything, they've kind of just been playing under their old CBA. So now they're both coming into this new contract at the exact same time. So the Soccer Federation is going to look at it and say, all right, you guys want equal pay? The women were mad because they looked at the men's deal and said, we could have been making $60 million more than what we're making now. They were already being paid more than the men's team was. The difference is the benefits that they had. That was the difference. They were making $100,000 salaries regardless. The men's contract was a pay to play. So if you weren't playing, you weren't getting paid. So it's a fundamental difference there. And when you come out and say we want equal pay, and then they say, okay, we'll offer you both the same contract. Now, granted, we don't know what that contract is. We don't know the specifics. We don't know what they're offering. We don't know if it's a better deal than what the men's team had before, or if it's the same deal that the men's team had before. Like we don't know. The men's national team isn't commenting. They're literally just coming out and saying no comment. I haven't found anything from them on this. The women's national team has come out with tweets. They've kind of said their piece, calling it a PR stunt and everything. But this is exactly what you get in these types of business situations. Okay, you say you want equal pay, great. I'm going to give you both the same contract. And when you turn it down, it's like, well, right now the only thing is the men's national team hasn't accepted it either. If the men's team said, yeah, we'll take this deal, and then the women's national team says no, that's where they really get into hot water. Right now, they're just kind of calling the bluff to be like, well, you don't like the contract, you don't want equal pay. Is this not actually about equal pay? Which it's not. Let's be honest. I mean, the real issue here is the fact that in that contract, they want an equal revenue share of any prize money won at the World Cup or anything like that, which is super beneficial for the women's team. As the men's team, I think it's an average like $400 million split. So it averages out to about $30 million per player if you win the World Cup. It's a huge amount of money. Whereas when the women won it, was it 2014? They won it. They made about $2 million per player. So drastic difference there. That's not really on the U.S. Soccer Federation, though. That's on FIFA. So I feel like that's where they need to take this issue. They need to go and talk to FIFA about equal pay for men's and women's soccer. Problem is, and this is the biggest issue here, is men's athletics has been more popular and probably is going to continue to be more popular than women's athletics regardless of sport. There are times when women's athletics can be more popular when they're winning, and it's only when they're winning. The moment that they're no longer winning, people stop caring immediately. I've been a Vikings fan for 32 years. They have sucked for 32 years. I will still watch it. The Lynx had a dynasty basketball team here in Minnesota. I never watched a single game. I was excited that they kept winning. Never watched it. Never cared. So that's the real issue there, and that's what they don't. I guess they either don't see it in the negotiations, or I think that's what their biggest real issue is they don't generate the same revenue. Now, from a personal standpoint on this, and this is my last piece on it, I hate the equal pay argument because I agree. Yes, base pay should be 100% the same. Benefits based on performance should never be equal. And so I can understand where their argument is, and maybe this is their issue. I don't think if the women's national team wins the World Cup that their profits need to be split with the men, because the men didn't do anything to earn that, and vice versa. So base pay and wages, sure, make that 100% equal. Benefits, if it's health benefits and things like that, that should be equal. But benefits based on what you accomplish should not. That should go directly to those players. So it's difficult. And like our comment says there, it's not the same league. It's not like the WNBA and the NBA. I mean, soccer is a little bit closer because it's the national team specifically. So it's not just like different clubs. So they do have the ability to pay them the same and rate them the same. But at the end of the day, it's a slippery slope. The USSF is really making the women's national team look bad here, and they need to be very careful with how they move going forward, or it's going to just destroy their entire reason for fighting this, because they already lost the lawsuit. So it's just a PR stunt on their part at this point too.
What you got, Dan?
All right. So I'm going to put a disclaimer on this. First off, Matt, to you saying about the men's team never winning, we just won the CONCACAF Cup, man. Come on. Don't just dismiss us like that. All right. Beat Mexico.
We are number 8 in the world. We're ranked 8th in the world right
now. So let me put the disclaimer on this before I say anything. I'm sure. That's right. We're moving up. I'm sure when people listen to this, I'm going to get heat and get called sexist, which I'm not. I'm just going to speak some truths, and that is hard for some people to hear. Here's the women's team's problem. Okay. Their fame comes from Brandy Chastain, okay? That is when the women's team hit the map. And then that fame slowly dwindled when, as Americans, we became it's like U.S. men's basketball. You're only noteworthy when you lose now. We expect you to win. It's become second nature. We don't care. Like, we watch it because it's American and it's national and we have pride, but win, because that's what you're expected to do. When you don't, that's when we're going to talk about you. And, you know, their thing is, we win, they don't. We should get more money. Can you imagine the outcry if the men's team actually won? I mean, look at the CONCACAF Cup. Look at when the U.S. Look at when we won that. I mean, the Twitter response to that game against Mexico was higher than anything the U.S. women's team has put out in probably the last decade. Okay, and that's including Olympics and World Cups and whatever else. Okay, so there's your problem. All right, and this is where I'm going to get called a sexist, because here's what women have issues grasping. Okay, you know, the Me Too movement and all this other, you know, cancel culture horse shit that's going on these days. Okay, people tend to look past when things are okay, other than the fact of the actual, you know, labor, you know, giving birth portion, why the mother of a child can get a month's worth of maternity leave, whereas the father can only get a week. Why is that just? Okay, if anything, you would think if my wife has gone through a vicious labor or something, okay, or, you know, if she had a C-section or whatever, okay, I might need more time off because I'm the one that's going to have to look after the baby post-birth until she can get up and move around. But does my job care about that? No, they don't. I need to be back right away. My child's birth is nothing. Is this giant screw job against you? This isn't the 50s and the 60s anymore. Okay, you know, and I'm really towing a line now when I'm going to say this, but it's the same thing with the Black Lives Matter movement. Not every cop is going out there with the idea of beating the crap out of the first black person they see. Okay? No matter what sector you walk into, no matter what group we talk about, no matter what you do, I mean, it could be a fan base, for Christ's sake. You will always find somebody that screws it up. There's always something. Okay? Whenever you walk into a classroom, there's always one kid that's an idiot or an asshole or whatever. There's always something. Okay? So yes, or is there something? Is there a situation where a woman is getting screwed in a workplace or something like that? I'm sure there is. There always is an instance. But is it this worldwide scandal where we are continually demeaning women because men are that much better and they have to get paid that much more than women? No. Do you think Oprah got screwed? She didn't. Let it go. Enough with this. Okay? Women, you had your U.S. women's team. You had your chance to cash in. You missed it. You now just become part of the American culture.
What do you think, Matt?
I don't really think about it.
Smart man.
It's not really a thing that I really think about because I don't think about soccer.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's very fair. I just like to make fun of the U.S. men's team because they lose a lot. I know they beat Mexico in the big game and they won that cup or whatever, but I was like, everybody else is playing in the Olympics at the same time. So.
Yeah, I mean, we do have an actual like star player though. Again, I mean, we haven't had a quality player since like Tim Howard and Landon Donovan. So Christian Pulisic is looking good. I mean, he does really well for Chelsea. He's kind of revitalized the team in a lot of ways. that rumor that Dan shared with us the other day that never came of anything gave me a heart attack. But like, I feel like the team is actually on the up and up. I'm not going to spread that rumor here because that's the last thing I want is to be clickbaited for saying something like that out of context from a no-name Twitter handle that's probably a Barry McCockner or something like that. It just comes down to that team looks better than it has. They're kind of more exciting now because we're not used to them playing well, and they're playing halfway decent right now. The women's team kind of let us down. We were expecting them to win.
Hardcore let us down.
Yeah, I mean, because with everything, yeah, that's true. He wasn't even on the team. He was playing in Chelsea when we won. So, like, quality game overall. I mean, the team looks a lot better. So it's kind of that hard rock in a hard place. Like, what are you going to do? I could go on the same soapbox with Dan when it comes to like the equal pay thing, the Black Lives Matter. I mean, I live in Minnesota. Black Lives Matter has been very impactful on my life for the last year and a half. Rightfully so, because that entire situation was awful, and I hope it never happens to my city ever again because I hated seeing my city on fire. Understand why it happened, and I get it now. But like these issues are nothing more than PR at this point. And it just comes down to it's going to come out, they're going to play the game, and eventually it's going to go away, and nothing's really going to come of it. Change will happen, but it's not going to be the change that either side wants. And there will be a compromise. No one's going to walk away happy, and we're probably going to hear about it again next time their CBA comes out.
Most likely. All right, so last thing for tonight. Dan, what do you got for locks?
Oh, okay. So just saying. First off, I need to apologize for the Twitter picks, okay? Because especially on college days, the picks we're giving out during the day are wonderful, okay? If you're playing those, you're making all kinds of money. The night picks have gone to crap, okay? I don't know what's happening at night, but they're not working out well, so I apologize. All right, maybe I just give up the night picks. So, but nevertheless, the NFL locks 2 for 2. Week 1 hit, week 2 hit. So here we go. Week 3, 14 parlay. You play it right now. It's plus 116. All right. If you don't follow along with us, okay. Each week our NFL lock is a money line parlay, which will always pay you slightly more than whatever you put out. All right. So in this case, for the record, if you put up $100, you'd win your 100 back plus an additional 116 for those of you who don't gamble. All right. So 14 parlay is pretty simple. None of these should be overly sweatful for you. Okay, we're going to take the Panthers to beat the Texans. Don't see a problem there. Panthers defense is legit, and Darnold is very happy that he is away from the Jets now. Those overrated Cardinals we talk about won't have any problem with Urban Meyer and his heart attack and Trevor Lawrence. The Ravens saw what Aaron Rodgers did to the Lions last week, so they'll duplicate that. And then lastly, as we made mention to, Zach Wilson cannot throw completions to the right team, and Teddy B will not have any problems doing that. So Broncos, Ravens, Cardinals, Panthers, your 4-team parlay lock of week 3.
Beautiful. All right. Anything else for tonight?
We have to do our final rant. And I know, Josh, are you sticking to that final rant you discussed? Because that's an interesting one.
Yeah. And I'll make it quick too, because it's super easy.
Go ahead.
Referees are on my shit list this week. I don't know if you guys watched that Mississippi State game, but so at the end of the Mississippi State game, there was a punt. Mississippi State punted the ball at the end of the game. Ball rolls down. Mississippi State player goes down, puts his hand on top of the ball, puts his knee on the ground. Ref behind him whistles the play dead, and then quickly waves off his dead ball call. And I honestly can't remember the team that they were playing, but it might have been Toledo or Tulsa. It was one of those teams. Weird slack team that they had no business being close with or losing to. Anyway, player for that team picks up said ball, runs it for a touchdown. Referees review the play. They look at it. They confirm it as a touchdown. Never before in my life have I seen a blatantly down football, a dead ball. I've never seen a dead ball more blatantly dead than that call. And they decide to wave that off and say, nope, it was never a dead ball. That ball was still live. He ran it, scored a touchdown. They win the game. You lose. And it was like 35-34. So it was a rough game for Mississippi State. Then we see on Sunday, was 11 or 12 penalties for taunting. And I don't know how you can have a player run into the end zone backwards and throw a flag for taunting, but Lamar Jackson can do a front flip into the end zone and not get a taunting penalty. This is the issue. And the reason why they continue to get away with this shit, at the end of a game, you have press conferences, right? The coach and the players have to go before the media and talk about where they fucked up or where they did well. Referees don't have to do that. There is no accountability if you're a referee. That needs to change, and that needs to change now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. It needs to change now. The referees came out after that Mississippi State game, wrote a letter, because they were SEC referees, mind you. They wrote a letter to Mississippi State saying, hey, yeah, we missed that call. Sorry, you were supposed to win that game, but you didn't. It doesn't change the fucking loss in the record, though. You didn't overturn that game. And guess what? They're going to be out reffing another game next week. They can do that to another team. Now, granted, I don't think this happens to like an Alabama or an Ohio State or something like that. I don't think they would get these calls. I think the refs put themselves in a position where it's like, this is a high-profile game. I can't mess this up kind of deal. But on these, big division but lesser level teams, you see this a lot. You need to start putting accountability on these refs. You need to start putting suspensions in place for reffing teams that do shit like this. If you don't have accountability, you're going to continue to have these issues. And it's not even about the rule itself. Like the way the rule is written and everything can be up for interpretation. That's what makes the game, and that's all part of gamesmanship. So I'm fine with that. But a reffing crew can just go out there and they get the final say in how a game ends. Not the players. The refs get the final say. No, that's completely uncalled for. We need to have them be held accountable. They need to be suspended or completely removed from rev duties if this is going to happen until there's an actual review. And there should be a review board for things like this. They talk about in the NFL where they have to call New York and they have people reviewing it and they kind of tell them what they see and what the official calls are and everything. We need something where it's actually reviewed after the fact and there can almost be an appeal process. Like that would fix what happened to the Saints against the Rams in that playoff game. I mean, it fixes the tuck rule. It fixes about 90% of the opportunities the Patriots have of getting into the Super Bowl. But you have to put something like this in place. And I don't know who's going to do it. I mean, if Ed Hockley decides that he wants to not be a ref anymore and be retired, that's fine. But maybe put him at the head of the table when it comes to figuring out this nonsense with reffing crews. Something needs to be done because it's ruining the game of football. It's heartbreaking, and it should never come down to a fucking zebra as to the final score of a game and who wins and who loses. That's my rant for the day.
Exactly. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Well, Josh, first off, it doesn't just happen to small teams because if you were watching the Penn State game, the officiating was so bad there, they made Penn State punt on third down because they told them it was fourth.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not limited to low-profile games. One thing that we can actually give Rob Manfred and baseball credit for is the umpires do hold press conferences after games to talk about calls and whatnot. So they do that there. The NBA also has that report that comes out after each game to talk about things that refs, got correct and got wrong. So the NBA is doing something about that too. But the problem with football is you have these 90-year-old guys that are doctors and lawyers during the week and decide they're reffing a football game on the weekends as like their subsidiary pay. It's like, this is my spending cash, from my second job. No, you need guys who actually have, eyesight and can move, and that is their profession. Like I am a referee. I'm not a gynecologist during the week or whatever else you're fucking doing. Okay, you're a ref. That's it. Done. Boom. Okay, and until that happens, you're always going to have problems. I mean, this has always been an issue. I mean, refereeing in the NFL has sucked, and it's just trickled down now to college. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by this, but no, it's not just the little schools. It happens to big schools too, plenty of time. And the fact that on a nationally televised game like Penn State, the officiating crew makes it a complete screw up like that and can't realize it is a fucking joke.
Yeah. All right. So I guess that's it for tonight.
Dan, did you have anything else to rant about? Do you have a rant of your own, sir?
I'll make my rant quick since you went, as somebody in the chat said, so much for quick on your rant. I'll make mine quick. The Mets have killed me yet again, like they do every year. And all I am asking for is Steve Cohen to step back like Bruce Wayne does in the Batcave where you can't see him. Just push the checkbook to the front of the table and say, put how much money you want and take this job and fix this. Because everything he said, it's like the Wilpons still own this team. I thought I was getting rid of all this shit, and it's still here. Like, I'm supposed to be cleansed from all the horse shit that I've been dealing with my entire life as a Met fan. And I'm not cleansed yet. I want to be cleansed. Okay? Give Theo Epstein whatever the he wants. Okay? If he wants 5%, 10%, if he wants the firstborn, if he wants a testicle, I don't give a shit. Give him whatever he wants. Okay? He broke the curse of the Bambino. He broke the curse of the Billy Goat. He needs to break the curse of fucking Queens. That's all I want. All I want. There. That's my rant. Nice and short and sweet.
Me too. I didn't know you were a Mets fan, Dan. We're in the same damn boat, man. All right, so if that's it for tonight. Oh, I know it does. If that's it for tonight, that's Dan Siegel, the bookie. And that's the beard, Josh. And I'm Matt, the host. And I guess we'll see you next week.
That's right. As always, go to Twitter, follow us on there. That's where we'll put picks out for college and NFL. Besides our lock, obviously, we'll put picks up for plays during the day. We have the page on Facebook. We're getting a lot of interaction on there. Go there. And always, you can listen to the audio version of this on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you guys listen to podcasts. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.